The crystalline throne room of the Xaether Empire glittered with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat. Kirsten stood before Queen Velsera, her human frame dwarfed by the towering alien monarch, whose 6 eyes tracked her every movement with predatory interest. "You're not going anywhere, human," Queen Velsera said, her voice resonating through the chamber like wind chimes made of broken glass. "The door stays locked tonight." Kirsten's jaw tightened, but she kept her expression neutral. 3 months ago, she and Alexander had been diplomatic envoys, sent to establish trade relations with the Xaether. Now they were prisoners, their ship impounded, their crew scattered across the Empire's prison moons. "Your Majesty," Kirsten began, choosing her words carefully, The Terran Alliance is 47 light-years away." The Queen interrupted, rising from her throne. Her chitinous body gleamed like polished obsidian. "By the time they receive your distress signal, process it through their bureaucracy, and mount a rescue operation, you will have been here for years. Decades, perhaps." She moved closer, her multiple limbs creating an unsettling rhythm against the floor. "I have studied your species extensively, Kirsten Hayes. Humans are fascinating creatures. So fragile, yet so persistent." In the detention wing below the palace, Alexander paced his cell like a caged animal. The force field hummed at the entrance, a constant reminder of his captivity. His mind raced through possibilities, discarding each one as quickly as it formed. The Xaether were advanced, their technology centuries beyond humanity's. Their security was supposedly impenetrable. Supposedly. Alexander had spent his childhood taking apart everything he could get his hands on: toys, computers, his father's hoverbike. He joined the diplomatic corps not because he was good with people, but because it was the fastest way to see alien technology up close. And what he'd learned in 3 months of observation was this: the Xaether were arrogant. They believed their superiority was absolute. That was their weakness. Back in the throne room, Kirsten played her part perfectly. She appeared defeated, shoulders slumped, eyes downcast. But her mind was calculating angles, distances, the positions of the guards. She'd been a gymnast before joining the Corps, had trained in 3 different martial arts. The Xaether had studied humans, yes, but they'd studied the wrong things. They'd focused on human fragility and ignored human adaptability. "Why keep us here?" Kirsten asked, injecting genuine curiosity into her voice. "What do you gain from 2 diplomats?" Queen Velsera's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "You underestimate your value. The human genome is remarkably compatible with our genetic engineering protocols. Your adaptability, your resilience, these traits can be isolated, enhanced, incorporated into our own species." She circled Kirsten slowly. "You should be honored. You will help elevate the Xaether to new heights of perfection." Kirsten's blood ran cold, but she forced herself to smile. "And Alexander? The male will serve the same purpose. Though I must admit, his constant attempts to communicate with you through the ventilation system have been entertaining." The Queen's laugh sounded like breaking glass. "Did he really think we couldn't detect his modifications to the air circulation patterns?" Kirsten's heart sank. Alexander's carefully coded messages, tapped out in modified Morse through the vents, the Xaether had known all along. Everything they'd planned, every piece of information they'd shared, the Queen had heard it all. Or had she? Alexander sat in his cell, humming softly. The tune was an old Earth song, one his grandmother had taught him. The guards had stopped paying attention to his humming weeks ago, just another human quirk in a species full of them. But the song had a purpose. The frequency, the rhythm, it resonated with the crystalline components in the Xaether technology. Not enough to damage anything, not enough to trigger alarms. Just enough to create microscopic fractures over time. 3 months of patient humming. 3 months of molecular deterioration in the force field emitters. Tonight, those fractures would matter. In the throne room, Kirsten made her move. She stumbled forward as if weak, falling to her knees before the Queen. Velsera leaned down, her curiosity overcoming her caution, and Kirsten struck. Her hand shot out, not at the Queen, but at the ceremonial staff one of the guards carried. She'd observed it for weeks, recognized it as a neural disruptor keyed to Xaether physiology. The room erupted into chaos. Guards rushed forward, but Kirsten was already moving, the staff in her hands. She'd spent 3 months watching, learning, memorizing every pattern, every protocol. The weapon activated with a thought, and the nearest guards collapsed, their nervous systems overloaded. Simultaneously, in the detention wing, Alexander's self-force field flickered. The crystals, weakened by months of precise acoustic stress, finally failed. He was through the opening in seconds, his hands already working on the manual override he'd spotted his first day in captivity. The X-Aether relied too heavily on their technology, never considering that a human might resort to something as primitive as mechanical sabotage. Kirsten fought her way through the palace, the neural disruptor buying her precious seconds. She wasn't trying to escape, not yet. She was heading down, toward the detention level, toward Alexander. The X-Aether had made one critical error. They'd studied human individuals, but failed to understand human cooperation. They met in the central corridor, and no words were needed. Alexander held up a data chip he'd stolen from the security station, complete schematics of the palace and the location of their impounded ship. Kirsten still held the neural disruptor, though its charge was nearly depleted. "The hangar is 2 levels down," Alexander said, already running. "I know," Kirsten replied, keeping pace. "I've been counting steps for 3 months." The X-Aether sounded alarms throughout the palace, but the 2 humans were already ahead of them. They moved through the corridors with purpose, every turn practiced in their minds 1,000 times. When guards appeared, they worked in perfect synchronization. Kirsten distracting while Alexander found alternate routes, Alexander creating diversions while Kirsten disabled security measures. They reached the hangar to find Queen Velsera waiting, surrounded by her elite guard. She'd anticipated their destination after all. "Impressive," the Queen admitted, "but ultimately futile. You cannot possibly." Her words cut off as their ship's engines roared to life. Not manually activated, Alexander had been doing more than just humming in his cell. He'd been using the ventilation system to access the palace's computer network, one careful instruction at a time, uploading a virus that would activate on his biometric signal. The ship's weapons powered up, targeting systems locking onto the hangar bay doors. "You studied us," Kirsten said, backing toward the ship as Alexander provided covering fire with a stolen plasma rifle. "You learned about our biology, our weaknesses, our limitations. But you never understood the most important thing about humans." "And what is that?" Queen Velsera demanded, her voice cold with fury. Alexander grinned as the ship's cargo ramp lowered behind them. "We're really, really stubborn." The ship fired, blowing open the hangar doors. Kirsten and Alexander were aboard in seconds, the ramp closing as the vessel lifted off. Plasma fire scorched the hull, but the shields held. Barely as they broke atmosphere. Kirsten took the pilot's seat, while Alexander managed the NAV computer. Behind them, the X-Aether fleet was mobilizing, but the human ship had one advantage. It was smaller, more maneuverable, and piloted by 2 people who absolutely refused to accept captivity. "Jump coordinates locked," Alexander reported. "Then let's go home," Kirsten said, "and engage the FTL drive that I in the palace below." Queen Velsera watched the human ship disappear into the void. Her mandibles clicked in what might have been respect or might have been irritation. Even she wasn't sure which. "Shall we pursue, Your Majesty?" one of her advisors asked. She was silent for a long moment, then turned away from the window. "No, let them go. They have taught us something valuable today." "What is that, Your Majesty?" "Never underestimate a species simply because they appear weak. The humans call it humanity. Fuck yeah, for a reason." The end.